Welcome to Through the Drama. Kris, Harrison and Lauren Zima with you today. Tuesday, we have a lot of drama to get through today.
We got a lot of political drama.
Yeah.
Political intrigue. Honestly, all of this plays out as if it's a movie. I feel like we've all been saying this for the past maybe 10 years as the American people, but this whole Joe Biden late breaking news that we're going to get into and cover up, I feel like someone scripted this in a movie. It feels like our Watergate.
This was a storyline in the West Wing, actually. A cover-up.
So Sorkin already did it.
Yeah, I used to think that art imitated life. Now I very much believe that life is somehow imitating art. And all this stuff has already been played out and predicted on the small screen and on the silver screen.
So you're saying we're in the simulation.
Yeah, somehow. We are definitely in the simulation. The big breaking news over the weekend on Sunday was that former President Joe Biden, 82-year-old man, was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, and that cancer has already spread to his bones. It is hormone sensitive, which essentially means it is treatable, probably not curable. Very sad news, upsetting news, and that part is not debatable, that we all wish him well and God bless him on a speedy recovery and on his treatment, because he's definitely going to be going through it. On a scale is kind of 6 to 10 as far as aggressiveness of prostate cancer. He's at a 9. So this is a very serious form of it. But it cannot be lost on any of us that this announcement came on the eve of a huge bombshell book by Jake Tapper that's dropping today, Tuesday.
Yes. The book is called Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, co-authoring this. And the book is all about the, quote, decline of President Biden, its cover-up, and his, quote, disastrous choice to run again. That is the cover line of this book. So, listen, we don't always get into political news. In fact, we rarely do. But when you and I get into it, it's always when there's a media element to it. And we had planned to talk about the release of Jake's book this week, because Jake is obviously a major player at CNN. And then this book is coming out, and we have a lot of thoughts on the book coming out at all in terms of Jake Tapper's coverage of the White House and then him now writing this book. So we have thoughts on that. But this cancer diagnosis coming out on Sunday, well, that's a whole other element of, this kind of PR perspective to discuss from it.
And look, I just want to say from the beginning, because people say, oh, it's too soon. The cancer diagnosis, you can't talk about the book and the cover up. Well, just as we always say, multiple things can be true at the same time, you can have multiple feelings at the same time. I feel for Joe Biden. And honestly, in all of this, I lay very little blame at his feet at all of this. But you can wish him well, you can feel horrible, you can pray for him. And at the same time, you can have a lot of questions.
And actually, that's what more journalists should have been doing during his presidency.
That's the thing is, if we learn anything out of this, you're right. We should be questioning. That is what the media's job is, and it's what they have massively failed at for the last decade. And it has cost us dearly, and that's what we're going to kind of dive into. So let's shelve the book, pun intended, for a second and just talk about the cancer diagnosis and the timing of all this.
I'm glad you got a dad joke in this morning. I will say that, first of all, the cancer diagnosis comes out Sunday night. And honestly, as you said, that's horrible. We all know someone who's gone through cancer. We all wish him the best. But I couldn't help but wonder, to quote Carrie Bradshaw, the timing of the announcement, it being Sunday night and the book coming out on Tuesday, you certainly have to ask, was this to soften the blow of the release of this book and how it would affect President Biden's legacy when all of the reveals of the book came out? Now, I didn't stop to think, wait, is this cancer diagnosis legitimate? But other people in the medical field started to wonder and ask and say, wait a minute. He's saying he got this diagnosis on Friday and that it's already spread to his bones. And people said, no, that's not even possible with this.
The math wasn't mathing on the time of getting not just a diagnosis of prostate cancer, but this aggressive form and how far it had gone. And basically all doctors are agreeing that this had to have been around for not just weeks, not months, years, maybe even a decade.
We're going to play this clip from MSNBC. And keep in mind, MSNBC, a very liberal media outlet overall. This is Joe Scarborough speaking to an expert doctor about the cancer diagnosis.
Again, I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, Joe Scarborough couldn't be a bigger Biden fan, a bigger Biden apologist.
He says that.
He says, I mean, he went on just a tirade, a profanity-laced tirade, admonishing everybody who questioned Joe Biden's cognitive ability, et cetera. This is the best version of Joe Biden we've ever had. He couldn't be sharper. And you see him stumbling and bumbling over this interview. And I love the doctor is very forthright. It's like, there is zero chance this happened Friday, and we find out now. It is zero.
And of course, the major question raised there is, well, why were the American people lied to about the state of the president's health? That's what that doctor is saying. He's saying there is no question that he had this at the start of his presidency. And the president's health records are supposed to be public. We are all supposed to be aware if the person we've elected has a health issue while in the White House. So it speaks to perhaps this news was announced to soften the blow of a cover-up, but all it's done is potentially expose another cover-up. And we are going to get to that when we come back.
Welcome back to Through the Drama. Kris and Lauren with you. And while the American people, we all kind of grapple with the fact that there's now probably one cover-up dealing with former President Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis, we deal with today the launch of Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's new book, which is all about a massive cover-up and fraud at the highest levels. It is Jake Tapper's book, Original Sin, President Biden's decline, its cover-up, his disastrous choice to run again.
Well, first I want to go through a couple of the major reveals in the book, because the book's out today. We've seen some experts, well, experts are a question mark with all this, but excerpts, and we have seen reviews come out. A few of the major takeaways from this book: that aides considered having Biden use a wheelchair if he was elected again, that he forgot George Clooney's name at a major event, George Clooney being a major Democratic supporter, fundraiser, and celebrity known the world over, and that Steven Spielberg was hired to coach President Biden for his 2024 State of the Union. That's how bad they felt his ability to give a speech was. They hired the greatest director of all time to coach him. I do want to know what that price tag was. I don't know if Spielberg gave them a discount because he was a fan. I'm not sure.
Did he get Oprah money?
So major bombshell claims here. And there's two elements to discuss. One, what is revealed in this book. And then two, the media element, which you and I are always fascinated by as journalists ourselves. The media element here of Jake Tapper sort of giving this expose on what went wrong and what was covered up. And yet many people accusing him of being a member of the cover-up, complicit in it as a reporter. Yeah,
and obviously there's that kind of viral clip of the Jake Tapper, Lara Trump interview.
Argument.
Yeah, where she was talking about his cognitive decline and that we all see this happening. And Jake Tapper shut her down, shut her up, talked over her, very strongly kept her from making her point. And actually then said she was making fun of his stutter.
Yeah, he accused her of that. And she
essentially gaslighting this woman for saying what we all saw. And Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have hired crisis PR management to kind of help them launch this book. And wisely, Jake Tapper has kind of fallen on the sword. Not really, but he said, yes, I was complicit in this cover-up as well. I wasn't a part of the cover-up, but I didn't open my eyes and I didn't push the narrative and ask the questions hard enough. So I give him a little credit, and I have seen other clips where he has ask some of those tough questions.
Well, yeah, he said he looks back on it with humility now. But I have to say, I think that I'm thinking of a word I shouldn't say, but the gravitas
Yes.
to say that you're going to write a book
Right.
about something that I guess I admire him for admitting I was wrong about some of this, but I'm now going to write a book about it. That's some gravitas.
The revisionist history here is so thick and rich with hypocrisy, and the amount of people, whether it's media or politicians, that are running to kind of victim hill now, which we have seen a lot over the last couple of decades, where politicians like, well, I really didn't see him that much. I don't know. I wasn't around him. And media members saying, well, we didn't know. We couldn't possibly see.
Well, they say, and listen, I'll give the media this. I do think that the Democrats were very aligned on the messaging about Joe Biden on, no, we're saying he's fine. We're saying he's good. So that's difficult when you are being told by your sources. You can only go by your sources, right? But I want to go back to that moment of Jake Tapper arguing with Laura Trump. When I look back and watch that, what bothers me is that he's arguing at all. I think we've really lost in journalism the fact, the creed that you are supposed to be asking questions, getting answers, challenging. But when he's talking over her, yelling at her, he's saying, who are you to question the president's health? Well, you know what, Jake? Why don't you maybe go question it then? Actually, it's you who's supposed to be questioning it. Yeah. Journalists are always supposed to be questioning, and they're supposed to be neutral. And, then you have somebody like Van Jones, and I do understand that he has this political background with the Bidens, but he's on there commenting about Biden's decline, but also saying, quote, I love Joe Biden.
Yeah. Van Jones, who worked in the Obama administration, he had this quote. So he and David Axelrod and Jake Tapper were all on this panel together. And he said, quote, everyone knew, but everyone was afraid to say that something was wrong here. And that statement alone is stunning to me, because all you're saying is you were afraid to say. And he went on to say something that I hope he kind of looks in the mirror and listens to this quote himself. I don't like Joe Biden. I love him. I love him. I was shocked to see his condition when he came out. And he's referring to the June 27th debacle of a debate by Joe Biden. Van and other media members, he said something very poignant here. And people have said, all these media members should be fired. And I disagree with that. But what I hope is there's a reckoning, is that there's a wake-up call for Van Jones and others who call themselves journalists. Because Van, when you love somebody, when you're having a love affair with the subject that you're covering, you are not a journalist. You are not unbiased. You can't be, because the love in your heart and the tears in your eyes that you have shed will keep you from being honest and taking an honest look. You're not going to say what you really think you're seeing Joe Biden do. And there is also this other side of this. There is such disdain and hate for Donald Trump. There is such disdain for the other side by these media members, Joe Scarborough, Jake Tapper, all of them, that they cannot allow themselves to ask an honest question about their side. And that, to me, we have to have an honest debate. We have to have questions. And if you're not willing to go there, you are not a journalist.
Well, listen, I'm going to come from I'll just be honest and real right now. Everything you just said, babe, I'm reminded of myself. I covered The Bachelor, and I have to say, we started dating and we fell in love. And when I look back, granted, that was a reality TV show. Yeah. It was not the White House, but very different type of drama. But I certainly look back and think, I really tried to keep that line separate. I would not ever have you tell me anything about what was happening in the show, because I wanted to review the show and talk about it from my own perspective freshly. But yeah, what's hard is that there's a phrase, access journalism, which I think that maybe is more known in the press world. But access journalism means there's a reality of you can't cover any topic without some level of access. You have to, as a journalist, form relationships. I'm not going to sit here and say journalists are 100% neutral. It's impossible. You're a human. You have to be able to like build relationships with sources, call on them for things. You can't be, a complete jerk and think that you're ever going to have anybody share information with you. So relationships are real. And if you don't have access, you don't have anything to cover anyway. But when you're sitting there doubling down and saying, I don't like this person, I love them, that's like a moment to look in the mirror. And again, Jake Tapper, like, own the fact that you should have asked the questions.
Right.
And instead he's written a book about how scorned he was.
The first chapter should have just been about Jake Tapper, just falling on the sword of like, I am a part of the failed system. I have failed you. I have not been a journalist. And then go from there. And I think we all would have felt better about this book, although the book is going to be a bombshell. And now the question is, what do we do with all this? It reminds me of kind of the bank failures in '08 of like the banks are too big to fail. This government's too big to fail. Who knew? Where was this cover up created? When you look at the press secretary, Jen Psaki and Karine Jean-Pierre, they probably had plausible deniability. They probably kept them on the outside and just told them what to say. Is Jill Biden and the family, were they involved? Where does this start? Where does it end? It kind of reminds me of the Houston Astros when they won the World Series but cheated. And it's like, what do you do when an entire organization cheats? Because it's so big. You can't find one person. You can't just say, oh, this person's fired. We can't cut with a scalpel here. It's too big. The media was involved. The press, it goes so deep. I don't know how we unpack all of this.
Well, we're going to get to what the reviews are saying about the book and more when we come back. We'll be back with more drama. Welcome back to Through the Drama. Kris Harrison and Lauren Zima here, taking you through the launch of Jake Tapper's new book about Joe Biden, Original Sin. And now we're going to take you through a few reviews of this book because we've given our piece, but let's try to be good journalists and give you a full picture of what everyone's saying. So I'm going to go to the Wall Street Journal first. Original Sin Review, a conspiracy in plain view. The Wall Street Journal says a code of silence among Democratic elites and many in the media discouraged public talk of Joe Biden's decline until it was too late. This sentence, their opening sentence, is what sticks with me. Quote, the completed picture of this book is one with which most Americans were already familiar.
No kidding.
That says it all
Thank
to
you,
me,
Wall
right?
Street Journal. Welcome to the last.
No. You have to understand what they're saying. They're saying this book is stating the obvious.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point is essentially what they're saying. They go on to say, it was always the author's state with a straight face in front of our noses. Like the Wall Street Journal even is pointing out, guys, I don't know if we needed this book. And that speaks volumes to me. They say Mr. Tapper isn't himself blameless, being a part of a liberal media consensus that believed it would be unseemly, if not taboo, to show much interest in Mr. Biden's mental state. And I do think that speaks to I have empathy for groupthink. Mm-hmm. It's hard when you're in any organization of any kind and everyone's giving you the same messaging to be the one to stand up and say, no, wait, or that's wrong, or I think differently. That is hard, no matter how old we get. Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with such a strong groupthink.
Yes, from the
like politics,
from the ruler of the free world's team groupthink.
And that goes for the right and the left, both sides. It really is.
Mm-hmm. We have the LA Times here. They say, they're quoting, Jake Tapper says the media didn't cover up Biden's original sin. Quote, we were just lied to. That's just kind of them giving Tapper a quote to defend himself there. And again, Tapper has said that it was that they were lied to. But I think that the reckoning you mentioned earlier, do you think it will really come?
I don't know. Sometimes somebody needs to shake up the snow globe. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this book will do just that. I hope there's a reckoning. I hope people like Jake Tapper Joe Scarborough, the like, will open their eyes. And look, are they going to become unbiased? No. The media will remain slightly biased to the right or to the left, depending on who you work for. And that's always been an unfortunate truth. But when there is a lie to the degree that we have seen over the last decade, where the majority of, actually all the people saw it, the majority of the people actually talked about it, and then the media acting like, holy cow, did you guys just see what's been happening? It smacks of such insincerity that they've lost so much trust. And the Democratic Party is really going to have a hard time recovering from this. They haven't had an open primary in the Democratic Party for, I don't know what, since 2008? They have a lot of work to do.
I want to be in a place where we feel like we have two. When we as a people only have two choices, I want both those two choices
We need
to be
them.
good. I want the transparency. We're in a different age. This isn't the age of the media where you could put a picture up of the president and you couldn't tell from that picture in that newspaper if he was walking kind of slowly.
Right.
This is the age where everybody's eyes are open. Social media is here. Video clips are everywhere. So we'll see what happens in the future, but I want to go back to the past and end on a lighter note of our history as it's being written. You have a couple on this days in history. So.
Yeah, this day, let's try to end on a happy note. May 20th, it is Tuesday. A couple things. In 1998, the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, was laid to rest. I know that's not a bright note, but a favorite of yours.
I love remembering that. Frank Sinatra, I loved Frank with my dad. He was my first concert I ever went to. I was 4 years old.
That is the greatest note ever. And in 2004, maybe the greatest romantic movie ever came out, The Notebook.
Bold statement. Hot take.
I mean,
greatest romantic movie ever?
I mean, it's up there, right?
I love it, but I don't know if I'd go that far.
That-
Okay.
You can't get through that book without just crying like a baby.
You read the book?
I did. That'll be a discussion
This is
for
the
another
reckoning
day.
of our marriage. Okay.
Thank you for joining us on Through the Drama. We'll see you every weekday right here on Merit TV and wherever podcasts are found. You guys take care. We'll see you tomorrow.